I've been expecting you.
Hey gang, Uncle Todd and Sonny here. As you can see, I've got a Halloween shirt on as get a day early start on the Halloween season. Our first review for the month is a little TV special hosted by none other than the great Vincent Price. So, finally getting a Vincent Price episode, and we have now done the entire trifecta, or quadfecta, however you want to call it, of the Golden Age horror stars. We've done Karloff, Lugosi, Chaney Jr., Price now, as well as Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. Now there are a few that sort of second tier. Those are first tier. There's second tiers like George Zucco and Lionel Atwill, Colin Clive, Basil Rathbone. But this is our, the top tier ones, the ones everyone knows. And of course, Vincent Price, huge horror career. Although, ironically, he wasn't initially identified with horror. He was an all-around actor. He played in all kinds of films, from the film noir Laura, westerns like The Baron of Arizona, gothic romances like Dragonwyck, as well as early science fiction horror and The Invisible Man Returns. And of course, in the late 50s, he then teamed up with William Castle to do House on Haunted Hill and The Tingler. And then he came to AIP and Roger Corman for probably his most well-known films, the Edgar Allan Poe series, which he had done House of Usher, not Telltale Heart, The Pit and Pendulum, Tomb of Ligeia, Trilogy of Tales of Terror, The Haunted Palace, although technically that is a H.P. Lovecraft story, but they, like they did with some of the other films he would make for AIP, they would just slap a Poe title on it, even though it came from somewhere else, like Witchfinder General, which was called The Conqueror Worm when released in America, and would have had a quote from that poem. They did that a lot because the Poe series had been so popular. We open with Price appearing, and he lets us know that we're going to be enjoying some ghost stories. And first up is The Ghosts Belong to Me by Richard Peck. Now he's just doing an excerpt from it. I actually am more familiar with it from the Disney Wide World of Disney two-parter they broadcast back in the early 80s, The Glass Figure. That's where they did the whole book that The Ghost Belongs to Me comes from. But we start out with a boy named Alex. This is set around not modern day. I believe it's originally in the book. It's set around the early 1900s, but here it looks to be a little more modern. And his neighbor Blossom tells him that her mother says that he has a ghost. Well, he scoffs at this, and she also lets him know that the ghost is in his barn. Silly. Anyway, one night he's sleeping, and lights and sounds from the family barn wakes him up, and he goes to investigate.
Blossom, Cole, you outdone yourself. Come on out. Show yourself, or I'll wring your scrawny neck. Come on out. I know it's only you in there. I'm lost.
Oh, there really is a ghost. Okay. But she seems to be a bit non-malevolent, let's say. And she implores Alex to follow her, which he does, and she leads him to a bridge.
The river's up. I've never seen it so high.
Could be she's trying to warn him. At that moment, he could have used another warning. Of course, the bus driver's none too pleased with some kid sitting out in the middle of the road on his route. But it's a lucky thing that Alex was there and the bus stopped.
Holy Moses. Who would have been on that bridge?
And then Vinny, I should say Mr. Price, Vinny, gives us a little postscript.
Alexander ever see that girl again? Well, I could tell you. Or you could read the book that tells their story, if you are brave enough.
Good on you, encouraging kids to read. That's using the old cabeza. Yeah, I don't know what that word means either. Anyway, he next introduces us to an excerpt from the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which opens at the party. Well, we didn't have Halloween yet, so this would have been like a harvest party, where we see Ichabod Crane and his rival, Brahms Brown, vying for the chance to take Katrina home.
Miss Katrina is being escorted home by me.
Like I said, she ought to have a man with her, Ichabod.
Unfortunately, Katrina seems to prefer Brom taking her home over Ichabod. And yes, you sharp-eyed viewers, Ichabod Crane is played by Rene Auberjois. Great, prolific character actor. Of course, he's probably best known as Constable Odo on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He was also a series regular on the sitcom Benson. And for those that like his horror appearances, he was also in the Faye Dunaway movie, Eyes of Laura Mars, as well as the comedy, My Best Friend is a Vampire, and even did voice work like for the fantasy film The Last Unicorn. Well, since Ichabod cannot take Katrina home, he will, and his horse, Gunpowder, will go on their own, although he is warned, be careful, people have been seeing the Headless Horseman. Now, the Headless Horseman was a Prussian soldier back during the Revolutionary War who had his head taken off by a cannonball. And the legend is that he rides during this time of year at night searching for his head. And if he comes upon anyone, he might just take yours as a substitute. Well, of course, Ichabod scoffs at all this and heads out on his own, where he runs into a strange individual.
Oh dear. Oh my goodness. What am I going to do?
And the chase is on. And Ichabod's racing and racing and racing. And luckily, he makes it across the bridge, which the horseman can't cross.
You silly spectre! We've made it, gunpowder!
Not quite up there with the Disney Flaming Pumpkin, but it's pretty good. Not that I was scared, of course. Next morning, we, of course, all that's found is Ichabod's horse, his coat, and a smashed pumpkin. And we are left to wonder, was it real? Was it a trick played by Brom? Well, back to Price, who gives us something to consider.
Todd. What happened to Ichabod? Why don't you read the book and see what you think? Hmm? Oh, I was just lying down here for a little rest. I have such a busy night ahead of me.
Cute. Well, we don't got time to contemplate that. Price does some comedy about clocks as a lead into our last and longest segment, The House with the Clock in Its Walls by, where's that? John Boanes. Of course, this was made into a film a few years back starring Jack Black, whereas that film did the entire book with some added things. This one is kind of truncated down into about 20 minutes. And it actually works fairly well. We open with young orphan Lewis arriving at his uncle's house, where he will be living from now on.
Well, Louis, this is going to be your room. Now, you must be tired after your long journey. I think you should go right to bed.
But, Uncle Jonathan, it's early.
We go to bed early around here, boy.
Yes, you sharp-eyed viewers, that is another great character actor who did a lot of work in TV and film. That's Severin Darden. Severin Darden. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. You probably know him best from his appearances in from the original Planet of the Apes series, the last two, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes and Battle for the Planet of the Apes. He also played Van Helsing in the horror comedy Saturday the 14th, and you would have seen him pop up on all kinds of TV shows. He played several characters on The Monkees. He made an appearance on Kolchak, the Night Stalker, and even Beauty and the Beast, the fantasy romance from the late 80s. He was mostly cast as doctors and lawyers and other professionals, and he just gave off that air of being a learned man. Anyway, after Lewis goes to bed, he gets woken up by these odd noises. There's a loud ticking and tapping, And he gets up to check it out and finds his uncle is tapping walls. Lewis follows him for a little bit, and then he makes an amazing discovery.
Spells and Curses, Volume 6, by Jonathan Barnevelt, Wizard First Degree. Holy smokes! Uncle Jonathan's a wizard.
Yep, his uncle is a wizard. Lewis does a little more sneaking around, and he finds parchment in an old organ. And the uncle catches up to him. Tells him he has a lot of learning to do when it comes to sneaking around. And explains, yes, he is a wizard. Lewis inherits that ability from his family, and with study he could become a wizard as well. And he explains that the parchment is the Doomsday Plan, and the Doomsday Plan was created by the former owner of the house, and it was to destroy the world. And he also explains why he's tapping the walls.
The world, of course. He's got the whole world wired up. The clock, boy. The clock in the walls. Old Izzard hid the clock in the wall so he could come back and blow the planet right off the map.
Yes, apparently the former owner was a mad scientist/wizard who was going to use his clock to line up everything, and boom! Which is why Jonathan has been tapping on walls. He's been looking for it for years. Well, the next morning, going off to school, Lewis runs into a new classmate, Tarby, who, trying to impress him, tells him he's a wizard. Darby scoffs at him, and as it's Halloween night, why don't he prove it by raising the dead? Well, Lewis is a little leery of that, but really wanting to impress Tarby and be friends, he agrees, and that night, at the witching hour, they meet in front of a mausoleum.
Maybe if we sit here for a minute, it'll come to us. Shine the light down the center of the circle. Where'd you get that from? I don't know. Abba, Baba, Bacabed. I did it! I did it! I am a wizard! I did it! Look at her! I did it! I did it! I am a wizard!
Well, in gratitude, the spirit chases them. And Tarby runs home, as does Lewis, who tells his uncle he's raised the dead. And his uncle's pretty proud of him, until he tells him who he raised.
Jonathan, what's the matter?
Selena was the name of Mrs. Izzard. That's what's got into the clock. Now that she's free, she's going to want to set off the Doomsday Plan.
Yep. Somehow, the clockmaker's wife, who was a witch, managed to get Lewis to say her name for this spell. And now she's on her way to get the clock. Well, they've got to get it before her. But how? Lewis comes to a realization. They've been using logic this whole time. But maybe, if they use illogic, that will work instead. And so asking questions of the magic 8-ball, which normally would just say yes, no, or maybe, he's asking it specific questions and it's answering them. And they find that the clock is hidden behind the old cold bin in the basement. So, already written. I'm past those notes. Good try. Don't chew on my wires. He is a vicious wire chewer. Always chewing wires when he's not chewing on me. Ow! So, they found the clock. But so has Mrs. Izzard.
Well, look at you, Jonathan. Trapped by my hand of glory. I'm surprised at you. You should know better than to stare at it.
Well, like with Jonathan paralyzed by the hand of glory, seems like all hope is lost, and Lewis is ordered to step aside so she can get to the clock. But Lewis is a little smarter than her and does the unexpected. Well, with that taken care of, we return to Vincent Price for his wrap-up.
What about Jonathan and Lewis? Did they live happily ever after? Or did Isaac Izzard return and do battle with them? I can't say. Oh, I could, of course, but I won't. I don't want to give away any more of the story and spoil your enjoyment in reading it.
After a little more comedy, Price gives a quick flash through the books that they talked about, and strangely, there's a fourth one there that they've never gotten to. We didn't do Dracula. Why was that there? And what's up with Price?
Or that a vampire casts no reflection in a mirror. You can either believe it or not. I believe in all of it, you see.
He was a vampire the whole time. Probably even Dracula himself. This is a very enjoyable, kid-friendly special. Each of the segments does have a jump scare in it, but it's nothing too scary for young kids. And I think this is something that could have been enjoyed by the whole family back when it was broadcast in 1979. And of course, Price is in great form. I couldn't think of a better person to host Three Ghost Stories than him. And he's also, as you know, got a flair for comedy, such as this bit with the clocks before he introduces the third segment.
My favorite time, the witching hour. And the dark gives me such comfort. Thank you.
Apparently they were using the Addams Family house to make this special. And thing just happened to be around to help out. Good for him. I think Thing's a him. Yeah, he's a him. Yeah, and the acting in the segments is really good. Especially, you got Severin Darden and Renee Auberjonois, who, great character actors, and the others aren't bad either. Some of the child actors can be a little iffy, but then that's child actors in general. They aren't as trained as adult actors are. But yeah, all in all, a really fun little Halloween special that you can enjoy this time of year, especially for the younger ones. Well, there's really not much else to say about it. There's not a lot of information on its background. So I will leave it here. Please hit like, share, and subscribe. And stay after the credits for my favorite scene.
I really have to go now. I have to be home before dawn. Perhaps you would like to come with me. We could grab a quick bite.